Hello, my name's Amy Buttery. I'm the head of conference organising at Arinex, and I'm joined by Professor Richard Mackay to discuss the ICOMOS General Assembly 2023. Richard was our convener for the General Assembly, and we're here to hear all his insights about the planning and execution of this incredible event. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Amy, and it's a pleasure to join you.
So, Richard, tell us about GA 2023, the big picture, individual events, and really what the highlights were for you.
Well, we were pleased to welcome delegates from 83 countries. We had more than 1,800 participants, more than 1,200 registered delegates. Across the 10 days of the event, the delegates got to enjoy more than 158 separate activities. That included 86 scientific symposium sessions, 57 side events, meetings of committees from all around the world, and visits to cultural sites all around Sydney.
Tell us about Sydney and why that was the chosen location for.
Sydney was chosen for lots of reasons, but it kind of picks itself as a venue for a global gathering. Firstly, in terms of attracting international delegates, Sydney's got the Opera House, the Harbour Bridge, the harbour. It's also got a really rich cultural heritage. And of course, one of the things that made it very possible for us was the support that we had and the facilities that were available through the ICC Sydney.
Can you tell us a bit more about the post-touring program? Because GA 2023 wasn't just the Sydney component. We also had the additional options either side of the main conference program.
Yes. Well, early on, we recognised that for many of our delegates, this would be a major lifetime visit to Australia. And we also wanted to engage ICOMOS members from all around the country, not just from Sydney. So, as well as the core program that was staged in Sydney and its associated Sydney-based side events, we had a national program of pre and post tours that allowed people to visit some of the iconic sites like Uluru Kata or the Great Barrier Reef or convict sites in Tasmania, but also allowed them to do some really special visits to historic cultural places that would not have otherwise been available to your average tourist.
And with that said, you've just listed so many incredible scenarios from GA 2023 that the delegates enjoyed. For you personally, as convener, what was your highlight from the 10 to 11-day extravaganza?
We kicked off the week with this amazing welcome to country for Indigenous delegates undertaken by game dancers and other performers at the Barra sculpture in the Royal Botanic Gardens. We then had, nearly 2,000 people in the Joan Sutherland Theatre at the Sydney Opera House and a highlights performance from Opera Australia. It was very moving to have delegates from northwestern Australia, from the Murujuga Aboriginal Corporation, who are the custodians of the place that's the current Australian World Heritage nomination, and to have those elderly, respected Aboriginal delegates come was really, really special. Maybe my favourite personal moment was when we hosted a party at Luna Park for all the delegates and seeing Her Royal Highness Princess Dana Faraz of Jordan, who was one of the keynote speakers, who's an absolute hoon on the dodgems, and you just don't want to be in her way.
And you touched on this very briefly just now, thinking about the smoking ceremony. And I know that weaving Indigenous culture into the program planning for GA 2023 was of paramount importance. Can you tell us about the Indigenous Advisory Panel and the efforts that went into that component to really make sure that GA was as inclusive as possible?
It was very important to us from the get-go to have an inclusive process, and we had Indigenous representation on some of our key committees. And early on, we established an Indigenous advisory panel so that we could get protocols correct. And of course, all of that was accompanied by the fact that we supported something of the order of 50 Indigenous delegates to attend the event from all around the country. And we had a dedicated Indigenous program, including some closed sessions, which were just for traditional custodians.
And I think another really crucial component for GA was the sustainability aspect. Can you talk about how that was achieved, what the priorities were, and how you went about making sure that GA was a carbon neutral and sustainable event?
We began by appointing a dedicated sustainability focal point who was part of our executive team. And we looked at the question of sustainability from top to bottom throughout the event. So we were very lucky because we had Arinex as our professional conference organizer, for themselves a carbon neutral carbon neutral organisation. We had the ICC Sydney, which was a carbon neutral event, and we were extremely fortunate to secure EarthCheck. Through EarthCheck, we were able to further our sustainable practices. We were able to very accurately calculate our carbon footprint, and then we were able to do other deals that saw us offset our net carbon footprint and get carbon neutral certification.
And I remember that we had features on the name badge, the delegate name badge, didn't we, with the scheme that we were running, and delegates could keep track of the carbon that had been offset with tree planting, which I think was a really nice, interactive way of bringing it together.
Look, indeed, there was messaging at lots of levels, from menu selection and water bottles not providing consumable features. But yes, absolutely. If delegates turned over their name badge, they could click on a crafter code, which would take them to visit the very tree that had been planted to offset their carbon footprint. So how cool is that?
It was really cool. And thinking about challenges, I mean, small pandemics aside, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges that faced you as the convener for the entire event, conference, symposium, everything? There must have been a few.
Dealing with the complexity of 86 sessions, not 86 papers, but 86 symposium sessions, and just the core logistics of moving that around, the need for live streaming and the impacts of the pandemic and people's expectations in terms of online presence. And then the scheduling, of course, which became very complicated because with that many events spread across 10 days, not everybody could do everything. And we spent a lot of time explaining, justifying, making decisions. But look, all in all, it just turned out in a truly fabulous way.
Yeah, didn't it? And I think thinking about working with Arinex, can you tell us a bit about what that was like? Obviously, you've worked with us for so many years, as you said, eight years or so, through a postponement, a reorganizing of all of GA. How would you describe your experience with Arinex?
Well, of course, I'm sitting in an Arinex office talking to an Arinex
You have to be.
person. So let me preface everything I say by acknowledging that. But look, Arinex are brilliant to work with. There's lots of things I could say. First of all, that the Arinex team are wonderful people, and they're a cohesive group, and they are good at collaborating amongst themselves and with us as a somewhat challenging, unusual event client. But the other thing I would say is that they're consummate. You guys are consummate professionals in that you know what you're doing, able to give us good advice, well connected with industry, understand the facilities and how things kind of mesh together, but also flexible and adaptable because we were very idiosyncratic. We're conscious of that, and we had a number of requirements. A simple one that springs to mind was the name badge, where we were insisting that the name badge be printed on card but have certain other attributes so that it was part of our sustainability package. And I have to say, it was a pleasure to work on those kind of initiatives and feel that we were setting standards that others might follow.
Thank you, Richard. And thinking more broadly about the legacy of ICOMOS GA 2023, and I know that that was crucial within the planning. It was really something that we looked at from a longevity perspective to make sure that this event would be award-winning, which it has been so far, and really go down in the history books of something incredible that we achieved together in Sydney. For you, what's the most important legacy piece from everything that we have talked about, or that ICOMOS GA has left behind?
Oh, the single most important legacy, I think, is the um, very positive contribution to global heritage policy on current issues, particularly the impacts of climate change on culture and the need for better engagement and recognition of the rights and responsibilities of traditional owners. There is also a sort of legacy for Australia ICOMOS in that we are now looking to be more supportive of our Pacific neighbours through a collective known as ICOMOS Pacifica, recognising that they need help, and that aligns very much with the climate change and Indigenous piece. Australia ICOMOS has also, I'm rather sort of pleased and proud to say, established an annual scholarship for postgraduate heritage studies, which is going to be known as the Australia ICOMOS Richard Mackay Scholarship. So I'm really, I'm personally chuffed and embarrassed,
Personal
but
legacy.
but very pleased, because it's very much that ethos about improving practice and leaving something for the next generation.
Absolutely. And finally, Richard, although thinking about doing another GA 2023 is probably not on your agenda at this stage, what piece of advice would you give to someone that was considering, joining an organising committee or organising an event like GA in the future?
I think the most important thing I would say is get very organised about your supporters. We analysed the policy announcements that the two governments had made, state and federal. And when we went and talked to them, and particularly at ministerial level, we were able to say, look, here's some things that you've already announced. It's a policy of the government, and we can help you deliver this through this event. And that, frankly, made all the difference, particularly in terms of getting the Commonwealth government to buy in. And once they bought in, the then Commonwealth minister actually called the state minister to say, look, we need to get round this. And of course, once we've got those two aboard, it's very easy to go off to other agencies within both Commonwealth and state government and get them to support as well. And once you've got those logos, of course, when you're talking to the corporates, they want to be part of it. And without that support, an event of this size and complexity would simply never have been possible.
Well, Richard, thank you so much. Firstly, for trusting Arinex to partner with you on this absolutely incredible event and for sharing all of your insights with us. I'm sure anyone listening will find it incredibly interesting.
It's a huge pleasure, and yeah, good luck with it all.
Here's to the next one.